Hello, everyone.
Hello. Hi, Vagish.
Hi, Noora. What do
All
we
right,
have?
we have a pretty jam-packed lesson today, so let's jump right into it, shall we?
Yes, but before we start off, registrations for the Coolest Products competition are now officially open. We'll stay on the slide for a second or two so you can scan the QR code or you can click on the link in the description. Onto the chat rules. We absolutely need everyone to be respectful and follow all the chat rules. We are moderating it and we don't want to ban anyone because of it. With that being said, namaste, everyone.
It's great having you all on the stream.
Would you like to expand on the slides or present them, Nora? That being said, this is week 6 of the starting from scratch stream.
If you haven't done so, please click the subscribe button down below or the notification bell to be notified every time that we go live.
Patink.
Today, we'll be doing introductions, studio time from week 5. Then we'll create our own blocks for the project. As always, we'll finish up with a game time and introducing next week's class.
Just a second, Nora. I think they can still see the frame of your presentation. Can you full screen it again? There we go. So today we're going to be making our very own blocks, which, as we learn, will make creating a game a piece of cake. These are your mentors for the class, and these are your Scratch usernames. So go ahead and follow us. Take a picture if you need to.
Once again, my name is Noora, and I play guitar, piano, and ukulele.
And who is that? I have never met this person in my life, but he looks very cool.
Yeah, right. That's you.
The audience doesn't know that. But yes, that's me. I'm Vagish, and I love making paper dragons. Before we start, these are the highlights from our studio of the rabbit game we created last week. And let's look at the first project. And it followed the naming protocol, which is very cool. Oh,
It also has instructions in the information, in the notes, and credits that hopes that we will like it.
and last but not least, it has a unicorn. So, always excellent.
All right, let's check out the second one.
Let's play it. Oh,
Princess wants to be healthy.
so this project also includes information in the notes and credits and used a girl to do the jumping. Also, there's a cool little text font that we'll see in a second. Oh,
Excellent. All right.
yes. Okay. And it's all personalized, which is excellent. And the last one, which followed the naming protocol and has a creative background and different sprites.
Yeah, excellent job. All right.
So these projects came from the two-part lesson we taught in which the game and the scoring. Excellent job to those creating these projects. Now we're going to check out the balloon popping projects from last week. So Nora's going to turn off. Oh, there she is. She's playing it right now. Woo! And I think we have one more in store, which is, there it is. Excellent job following along with last week's lesson and naming the projects right, and including notes and credits. So the credits said thank you and have fun, and we did that. So thank you all for submitting. Both projects incorporated different balloon colors. Excellent job on personalizing your projects. The people on screen also did a great job following all the naming rules and going through the class. And now it's time to check out something from the coolest projects competition. Today, we're going to meet Pacey, the ball, and make some choices.
Role play a conversation with a cartoon circle. All right, check it out. What is your name? Okay, I'm going to put mentors. Hey, mentors. Hi, my name is Pacey. How old are you, mentors? I'm going to put 18 because I am 18. All right. That's a good age. I'm 8. Do you want to go to the beach, mentors? I don't know, Vagish. Should we?
Absolute. I mean, of course we want to go to the beach.
Then let's go. Oh, look, let's buy ice cream. Ah, we seem to have run out of ice cream.
Aw.
No matter, we'll buy heart candy. 1 heart candy coming up. Oh, make that 2. Okay.
Oh, one for me too. Yay.
Mentors, you better eat that. Bye, mentors. Bye, Pacey.
Bye-bye.
Alright.
So we do encourage everyone watching to submit a project. We will find out which projects are picked on June 8th, so stay tuned. Last week, Abia and Nardos showed us how to make scoring for our games. So if you haven't seen it already, do check it out on this very channel.
Today, continuing on the trend of games, we are going to be making our very own blocks in Scratch in an activity called the Star Catcher.
Such a cool name. So let's look at our sample project to see what we're going to be making today. Nardos will pull it up. Oh, Noora will pull it up. Whoops.
Alright. Whoa. Hello, my name is Kieran. Can you help me catch 5 stars to power my rocket ship?
Before you start playing, can you full screen it again? I think we can see the bottom bar and top. Oh,
Oh. Can you not see me play?
we can, but if we still see the top and bottom bars,
Oh,
can
alright.
we? There we go. That's bigger.
Perfect.
There we go. And we got 5 stars. So there's a story behind it. Kiran was an astronaut and she was out in space when her spaceship stopped working. So she needed 5 magic stars to fix the spaceship up and return home. The stars, however, were mixed up in an asteroid field. So she has to dodge the rocks, catch the stars, and return home safely.
To break it down even more, we have specific steps for each part of the plot. The steps help us meet Kieran through the introduction, catch stars and avoid rocks during the game, and then send Kieran home after we have won. Alright, so I'm going to head over to Scratch and...
The file naming protocol for this week is starcatcher followed by your name. So if your name is Aya, it's starcatcher Aya. With that being said, let's jump right into our live demonstration. Go to scratch.mit.edu at home and open up a new project. Click on the Create button on the top left, and it should take a second to load.
Alright, now let's use the naming protocol. So I'm going to name it Star Catcher Mentors. Perfect.
So after Noora types in the name, we can get started on preparing our project.
Alright, the first part we'll want to prepare will be our sprites. We're not going to need the cat, so let's go ahead and delete it.
Bye-bye, cat. So we want to add Kiran, our astronaut. So we'll go into the sprites and Kiran. There we go. We need the stars for her to catch, and the rocks and the rocket ship. So rocks for to avoid, and rocket ship. And with that, we can get into their costumes. So we'll switch over to the costumes tab, starting off at Kiran. And it looks like she has tons of costumes we don't need. So we're only going to keep the ones with her mouth closed and her mouth open. The mouth open will look funny for an animation when she jumps up. The rest we can delete. Then we can rename the costumes that we have based on what makes them unique. So we'll name one closed mouth and the other open mouth. And once we're done, we'll look at the star. Oh, there. So the star costume, it looks pretty good. So I think we can move on. And the rock. Now, in outer space, I don't think rocks particularly stick together, so I think we can delete the tiny rock in front. Yeah, no, I already did it. Lastly, the rocket ship. Now, the rocket ship also has a lot of sprites that we won't need, and we'll only need the rocket ship pointing forward. So we can delete the other ones and rename it to something we can understand.
Alright. Alright, now all our costumes are set, so let's prepare our backdrops. Let's switch over to the Backdrops tab so we can send Kieran to space.
So let's click on the green Choose a Backdrops button and then click on the stars backdrop. It'll be found under the Space tab. Now that we have the stars backdrop into our project, by using the plot, we also want to know that we need a celebration backdrop to let the players know that they've won. Now, because we already know this in advance, we can duplicate it now and create a you win backdrop. So we'll name it you win, and that way we'll know in the code that this is for when the player has won. Next, you'll notice that this backdrop is in the bitmap format. That means we can only change the pixels. We're gonna want to convert it into the vector format before we add any text. Remember, vector format deals with shapes and text. So we can add the words you win and then use the select tool to make them bigger, and we can change the color to make it easier to see. And just like that, our backdrops are complete. Just make sure to delete the ones we aren't using. There we go. And now we're done.
Alright, now we're ready to begin the instruction part of the game, where Kieran... Wait, where is she?
It's pretty hard to see with all the different sprites on the stage at once. Let's hide the ones we aren't using first, and that way we can add them back in.
Good
So we'll go to the sprites that we don't need right away and add a hide block attached to the when green flag clicked block for our stars, rock, and rocket ship. Noora is going to copy the code between them using Control C and Control V.
Now let's test it and see if they go away. Alright, awesome. Perfect. Now we can see Kieran, but it looks like our backdrop is saying that we've won the game, and we just started.
Yeah, I think we need to make sure that when the game starts, the backdrop always starts on the stars, and we can do that using a switch backdrop block.
Awesome.
And start off with stars.
Alright. Now we can code the introduction part where Kieran explains the game. For this, she'll need to spin to where we can see her, stop and talk, and then spin away.
First, let's drag her to the very edge of the screen where we want her to start. Then, we need to make sure we set that position in using a go-to block. And
Alright,
just
now
like
it's
that.
time to make Kieran spin.
First, let's gather all the blocks we'll need to make her spin. So in order to spin, we'll need a turn block. So let's say turn 15 degrees. And we'll also need a change X by block to move her. Yeah.
We're going to want to make her turn a little, and then move towards the center a little, and then turn a little, and move to the center, and then...
Then turn. Wait a second. And over and over and over. Wait a second. That's a loop. Yeah. Yeah, we can use a repeat block so that all the code we put inside will be repeated the number of times as the number in the white circle on the repeat block. Can we zoom in a bit so everyone can see?
Yep.
There we go. So a loop can repeat our code over and over and over again.
Let's test our code and see if Kieran can do a spin now. Oh, that is not what we wanted.
Yeah, she's not moving the way we want her to, and she doesn't end up on the middle of the screen. And lastly, of course, she's upside down. That's no good. So let's try that again. But first, let's position Kieran back to the very left. And oh, she's still upside down. We'll use a point in direction 90 block to make sure that she always restarts herself pointing to the right. So point in direction 90. Ah, there it is.
All right, perfect.
And once we've done that, we can look at our slides to see and learn what we need to help Kieran spin.
Okay, so the repeat block controls how many times the code inside is run and how much Kieran's position changes. The turn 15 degrees is how far she's going to turn before she moves towards the center. And lastly, the change X block controls how far she moves towards the center before spinning again.
Oh, I think my phone alarm's going off. Give me a second. And sorry. So first, let's make sure Kieran can do a full circle. But wait a second. What is a circle?
It's challenge time. How many degrees are in a full circle? Let us know in the comments down below.
Hmm.
All
Interesting.
right.
Oh,
If you said number 360, you are correct. So congratulations, give yourself a pat on the back. And for those of you wondering, the small symbol next to the 360 is the symbol for degrees. All right, so we can use a little bit of math to help us make sure that Kieran goes 360 degrees. She's going to turn an amount of degrees, but it's going to be repeated an amount of times. So we will need to make sure that the amount of degrees multiplied by how many times it will repeat is equal to 360. So let's try and scratch. I'm going to change the X block for now so that she doesn't move, but we can see her do a spin. So I'm just going to set this to 0. And let's try it with repeating it 4 times and then turning, I'll set it back to normal, turning it 90 degrees, because 90 times 4 is 360, but let's see what happens. And I'll just drag her out in the middle so we can see that again. So she ends upright, but she's not spinning how we want it to turn. It's kind of choppy and it's going pretty fast. So let's try it with some other numbers. Maybe like, let's just try 10 and 15. Oh, so she doesn't end up right side up because these don't equal 360 when they multiply together. Yeah. So now let's try again with, this time, repeating 90 times, but only turning 4 degrees. So we're going to swap the numbers that we first tried. Oops. I'll move it towards the middle so you can see it.
oh. There we go.
All right, perfect. That was pretty smooth.
So
now
Noora used math. Oh, Noora used math to assemble the blocks. So let's check out what she did. So we knew that she had to get 2 numbers to multiply to 360 to get a full circle. But many different numbers multiplied to 360? How on earth do we know we got the correct ones?
Well, we tested them, of course. Usually, though, the more times code repeats, the smoother it will look. So we're going to use the repeat 90 and turning 4 degrees in our actual code.
Now, let's make sure that Kieran also ends up in the middle of the screen. So, when we drag Kieran to the middle of the screen, she ended up at x minus 10, which is 270 blocks away from her starting position. So we want to make sure whichever number we change x by will move Kieran over 270 places, from the edge of the screen to the center. So let's test it out. We'll go over to Scratch, and when we drag her to the middle of the screen, it is x is equal to minus 10. So the center is 270 places away from the left. Let's just test out numbers to see where Kieran ends up. So we need to move to 70 places. So let's try it out with 6. That seems like a good starting point. Change x by 6. No. She went too far.
6 times 90 must have been greater than 270.
Okay. So if 6 is too big, let's try something smaller so she doesn't move as much. A 1, maybe?
Start with 1. Oh, she is not moving very far.
There has to be a better way to do this.
Yes, we can use math to help us.
So we know that Kieran spins smoothly when she repeats a 4-degree turn 90 times. We also, at the exact same time, want her to move 270 places. So using the magic of math, let's divide the distance, 270, by the number of times the loop is repeated, 90. To find the correct number, we'll need to move towards the center while also turning. So when we complete the equation, we get our magic number 3. So if we test 3 in Scratch and set it up with 3, Kieran's right at the center. Woo! So we now have 3 blocks that help Kieran do one thing: spin. Let's see how we can combine them to make our very own block.
Alright, so in order to make Kieran spin whenever we want, we are going to use a function. A function is one block that represents many and can accomplish one task. Over here, we can see how jumping is a function in real life. Our computer has to be taught how to do things just like we were. Let's take a look at some other types of functions. In a car, we can tell the car to drive by pushing on the gas, which then lets the rest of the car know to spin the wheels and make it drive.
Just like how someone tells us to jump or how we push on the gas, something has to let the computer know when to run the function. And in computer science, this is known as calling a function. Tring, tring. So, when we push on the gas pedal, the parts of the car know they have to do certain things to make the car drive. As you can see, we call the function by pressing the pedal. The function causes the internal parts of the car to do something, and at the end of the day, we can see the result in the car moving.
Functions can be pretty tricky, so don't worry if you don't fully get them yet. We have a video on functions that can help you understand them a little bit more. It's located in the class resources in the description box below. Check it out after this class. We also have a project in our studio, like the one built in the video, for you to check out.
Functions have many different purposes and can do pretty cool things. But in today's project, we'll use them to condense our code to make it easier to understand.
Let's use the code blocks we've created to make Kieran spin. Alright, so we will need to teach Kieran how to spin by defining our new function using this define block. Then we'll need to call our function into our code.
So let's head over to Scratch and we can check it out ourselves. First, we need to make a block under the My Blocks panel. And we'll need to name our new function block based on what it's going to do. In this case, spin.
Alright, so after you've successfully made your function, two things happen. One, a define block should automatically show up in your workspace, and two, you also should see a new block on the menu with the name of your function on it. This one's spin.
So let's drag all the blocks we used to make Kieran spin under the define block. So now one block is taking the place of three blocks. And we can call our function by adding the new spin block into our code. It's bright pink. So let's switch back to our slides to recap what we just did. So first, we created what we wanted our sprite to do. Then we created our function block to store all the code. Then we called the function, and last but not least, we got Kieran to spin. We just made our very own block, especially just for Kieran. So the programmers at MIT made all of these blocks you see, the yellow blocks and the blue blocks, but we made this pink one all by ourselves. Woohoo! So let's head back to Scratch.
Alright, now let's explain the mission to the players.
So once she's at the center stage, we'll want Kieran to explain herself and introduce the mission. So that we need to explain that in order to win, they need to catch 5 stars. And to do all that, we'll use the say blocks. And once she's done doing all that, we need her to spin off screen again. Oh, let's finish the little introduction. You need to collect 5 stars to repair the spaceship. And we can reuse the spin block from earlier to make her spin off screen. Ah, what a time saver.
Alright. Now let's test out our introduction.
Hello.
Hello, my name is Kieran. Can you help me catch 5 stars to power my rocket ship? And then she spins away. Awesome.
So it's doing exactly what we wanted it to. Brilliant. So now we can plan out the game part of the project. So let's review what we know. We know that Kieran needs to catch 5 stars to go home. And we also know that the stars and our other sprites are currently hiding. So, Kieran will need to let the sprites and herself know that she's done with the introduction and that we need to start the game.
When our game starts, all of our sprites do different things at the same time. Now we're going to begin coding what each of those sprites are going to do, starting with Kira.
So, let's broadcast a message to start the game. We'll grab a broadcast block from the events category and name the new message game. Now we can code exactly what will happen to each sprite when they receive the broadcast block.
First, let's start with Kira. She will need to shrink so that she has enough room to grab the stars.
So originally Kiran was set to 100%, but that's way too big for her to jump up and still have room. So let's change it down to about 60%.
Alright.
And we'll also need to change her position. So we want her to start on the screen on the very left of the stage, so she has enough time to see the rocks and the stars coming. So we'll set her new position with a go-to block. That way, when the game starts, she always shows up on the left.
Now let's test our code from the beginning to see if our beginning and middle connect smoothly.
Huh? Well, our code played again, but Kiran's super tiny. Well, that's because we set the size to 60% when we wanted her to be smaller, but we didn't set it back to 100% when we started the game. So we'll add a set size to 100% block at the very beginning, and we can try it again. That way, for her introduction, she's big, and for the game, she's small. Oh, just like that.
Alright, let's see. Perfect! Alright, the next thing we want Kieran to do when the game starts is be able to jump for stars when we tell her to. Like we mentioned earlier, we're going to use functions to contain all of our movement. So, we created a spin block, but now we're going to create a jump block.
So let's go to make a block and name it jump, because that's exactly what we wanted to do.
Alright. Were we successful? Let's look for our define block in our workspace. Here it is. And a new block on the menu with the name of our function on it. So here's our jump block. We did it. Alright.
So now here's where the costumes come back into play. We can use Kieran's open mouth costume to make her look scared. And I would be scared. I don't want to jump into a bunch of rocks and stars. So we'll add the switch costume block under our define block. And now we can make Kieran jump by dragging her to how high we need her jump to be. Then we can grab a glide block so Kieran can glide up to that position.
Alright.
And she needs to fall back down. So we'll grab another glide block, but this time we already know her starting position. So we'll use the same numbers as our go-to block. So glide and copy the numbers. And last but not least, we want to close her mouth because once she's on the ground, she's not that scared anymore. So closing the mouth.
Alright. Let's go ahead and test our jump. So I'll just set her back here. Pretty smooth, but it seemed a little bit slow.
I agree. So let's change up the amount of time it takes for Kiran to glide up and down. So right now it's 1 second to go up and 1 second to go down. So let's cut the times in half and try again. Perfect. So we need to make it so Kiran can always jump on command. Or, well, until she's caught the 5 stars, of course. Since we don't exactly know how long this is going to take for each player, we'll use a forever block, so it always detects our jump. Then we'll add an if block, so Kiran only jumps when we say so. And now we need a condition to jump. What should we use? I think we should use the space bar. I mean, it's only appropriate since we're in outer space. So we'll add the when key space pressed.
Alright. Now that we have our block set up, If we press the spacebar, we want Kieran to jump. So, ring ring, let's call our function. Go ahead and add the jump block. Alright,
And
perfect.
now when our game starts, we also need a score, and we need it to be set to 0. How we'll score our game is by first making a variable named score, and then adding the show variable score block and setting it to 0 in our code. So making a new variable and showing it and setting it to 0.
Alright, perfect. So now let's test it out from the beginning and see. The score shows up, but during the beginning, which isn't what we wanted.
So we'll need to hide the variable score. We'll need to hide the variable. So we'll use the hide variable score block when the green flag is pressed and test the code again.
Alright, perfect. Now it's gone. Okay, so while Kieran is doing that, let's give Kieran some stars to catch. We want our star to fly across the screen over and over and over again, so that it looks like different stars. What makes the code repeat over and over and over? That's right, a loop! But wait, where is our star?
Ah, we hit it in the beginning, right? So we need to make sure that we can see it now using a show block. We need to add that. So we'll go to the sprite and say once we receive the message that the game has started, we'll show. We also want to add that into we also want to add a forever loop so that the star can fly through the sky forever. Or, well, again, until we catch the 5 stars. This will make the 1 star look like many. Now,
Hmm.
the question is, do we put the show block inside or outside the forever loop? Well, if we do a little thinking, we realize we want to put it inside the forever block. So that way it always shows up before it flies through the sky, even when Kiran catches it and it disappears.
Now let's get our star ready to fly across the screen by starting it there.
So we move our star to its starting position, and make sure it's far enough to make her jump, but close enough for her to catch. And there. And we'll set the starting position using the go to block. And now we can glide it to the other side. So we'll drag the star to where we want it to end and add a glide block for smooth sailing.
Alright,
Glide.
now let's test.
Shoo.
Perfect! Our star
So,
does just what we wanted it to.
so now Kiran can jump and our star can fly. We just need to make it so that when Kiran catches the star, our score goes up. So when the player presses the spacebar, Kiran jumps and either catches a star or not. So we can start Kiran's adventure by putting our blocks underneath the when key space pressed block. Under controls, when key space pressed. Let's add a forever block to detect if Kiran's touching a star forever. Now then, now we'll add an if then block so that if Kiran catches the star, the player earns a point. And again, we're stuck. How on earth do we know that the star is touching Kiran? Well, we can use the touching block under sensing. So if Kiran is touching the star, then we change the score by 1. So under variables, we'll change the score by +1.
Alright, but wait, we can make it look like Kieran is catching the stars right out of the sky.
Good idea. So when we'll make it so that when Kiran touches the stars, they disappear temporarily. And we can test it.
We'll just play the thing. Alright, so we can see she spins. There's no score. Can you help her? Okay, yes. And now let's try it. Awesome! Now we can grab the stars. Perfect. and our score increases when we catch them. Now let's make the game more challenging by adding rocks for Kieran to avoid. But before we switch over to the rock, we want the rock and the star to do almost the same thing.
So instead of writing brand new code for the rock, let's just backpack our code from the star and use it for the rock. Now, let's add the code into the rock sprite and see what we need to change. First, we need to make sure that the rock and the star don't go at the same speed because then they'd perfectly overlap and it would be impossible to separate between them. And second, we don't want to gain a point when we hit the rock, we want to lose one. So we'll change those two things. Actually, speaking of the rock, where is it? I think we've still hit it. We'll need to use the show block to make it show up again. Oh, that's there. Right. Never mind.
Yeah, we use the show block for our star, so we can also, it'll also be there for the rock, so we'll be able to see the rock too.
There we go. And we've adjusted the time it takes to glide from 1 to 3 seconds. That way, it's slower.
And now we can see that they're going to be moving at different speeds. Alright. Now let's make sure that the score decreases.
So in the block that changed the score to +1 in the star, we'll make the number -1. So it'll be the score -1. Let's test it out. And we can try jumping. Oh,
Yeah.
first introductions. Hello again.
Alright. Now let's see it. Oh, I actually hit the rock. Now it's at -1. It's okay. Now it's back at 0.
Can we zoom in so that we can see all the code? And no.
There's the
Okay.
game, and here is the...
There we go. But it looks like everything we want to happen is happening.
Yay. Alright. Now, after 5 stars have been caught, it's Kieran's job to make sure that all the sprites know that the player has won the game.
So before Kieran does that, we need to first detect once 5 stars have been caught. Now, in this game, the computer checks how many stars Kieran has caught after the player hits the spacebar. And sometimes the computer needs the spacebar to be clicked more than one time to verify that 5 stars have been caught. So we included that information in the instructions of our game. So we'll add an if-then block so that our stars are caught and Kieran can go home and let the players know that they've won. Now, how do we find out how many points Kieran has? We'll use an operator block. So we'll drag out the green operator that has an equal to sign. So that way, if our score, the variable, is equal to 5, we'll want to tell the player that they've won. So we'll grab the score from the variables and place it into our if-then statement. And 5. So now, after 5 stars, the variable score should be equal to 5, and it should run the code to broadcast a new message to let all the sprites know that the game has been won and they need to stop what they're doing. We'll name it You Win.
Alright, now it's time to send Kieran home.
So for the last bit of this live stream, we'll first use our You Win backdrop so that players know that they have won. Put it under the You Win broadcast. So when you receive the You Win broadcast, we switch to the next backdrop. And next, we need to hide Kieran so that she can hop into a rocket ship and go home. But first, let's switch to her sprite. So we'll switch to, oh.
Yeah, we're
we are
actually coding on her sprite. Yeah.
There we go. Okay. So we'll hide her, and we'll also want to hide the score because the players already know they've gotten 5 stars. So we'll hide the score. Great.
Right. Now let's make Kieran's rocket ship float across the screen.
But the rocket ship's missing. Ah, okay. We'll use a show block to make sure that we can see it once we've won. So when I receive You Win, show. And last but not least, we have to make the rocket ship glide across the screen. Y'all are probably master experts at gliding because we've been using the glide block quite a bit in today's lesson. Like always, we'll drag it to the starting position at the bottom and use the go-to block to set its starting position. Then we'll drag it to the top where we want it to end and grab that position using a glide block.
Alright, now it's testing time. Oops.
Oh,
Something did not work. Let's go ahead and test it out from the beginning to see. Oh, so it looks like Scratch might be having a problem. I'm going to refresh my screen. First, I'm gonna save
this
my
can happen
files.
from time to time, but a refresh generally fixes most things. Oh, is everything okay? Ah, there we go. And let's try out our code again.
Because we hit Kieran and we didn't use a show block in the beginning, she's not showing up. That's what it was.
Ah, okay, there we go.
Let's make sure that we have a show block so that we can see her. Alright, there she is. That's real life debugging. Okay, so now we can see the introduction part. Can you help me catch 5 stars? Alright, perfect. And I'm going to actually have to catch these to see if our ending code works.
Noora's an expert at this. Wow.
Nope, it is not. So maybe, let's see. Oh, it's because our glide block is gliding to the same place that our starting block was. So I'm going to throw this out. I'm going to just do it one more time.
So we start our go-to block on the bottom and we'll drag it out from there. And we'll use our glide block to go to the top. So we'll move the sprite to the top, double click and set it up, and we glide there.
Alright, now let's see.
Let's just run that last bit of code to see.
So I might have to manually put in the numbers because sometimes this happens with Scratch, but the block doesn't pick it up. So my go-to block should be at -13 for the X and -257. But for some reason the go-to block is not picking it up, so I'm just going to type it in. And hopefully that'll work.
Okay.
And we'll also do that for our position for the glide block.
For the glide block, we'll only need to change the Y coordinate because that's the up and down coordinate.
Yep, so we can just keep it at -13 and change it to the number in there, which is 254. Alright, awesome. Okay, now it works. Sometimes Scratch does that, so it's good to be able to use the stage panel to help us if sometimes our blocks don't refresh quick enough. But yeah, our rocket ship did fly, but that was also super fast. So let's slow it down so that we can see it a little bit better.
Like we did with the rock, we'll change the amount of time it takes to glide from 1 second to 2.
Alright, awesome. Now our ending is complete. So let's do one more run through of the entire game just to make sure that there aren't any more bugs. Because we have run into some problems. Yeah. That's why it's super important to test out your code.
Ken introduces herself well, and the game starts. Oh. Noora should become a professional star catcher at this rate. Shoop, shoop.
Yeah. Alright. Perfect. Okay. So now let's switch back to our slides and celebrate. Alright. Woo! We sent Kieran home, and yeah. Excellent job, everyone. Alright. So sometimes your Scratch project will have some problems, as we've seen on the screen, that even you as a programmer can't always see. Even apps on the App Store sometimes need to be updated because they have small problems or bugs.
So our game had some trouble launching the rocket ship for some players, so we put in a note that suggested that players refresh their screens, and we included that in the credits and instructions. Now
Also,
that
while
we're
we were
done.
building the project, we noticed, that our rocket ship wasn't going, so we had to take the coordinates too. So even Scratch sometimes can get some bugs, just like our own projects. All right,
But now
now
that
it's
we're
time
done
for
with
our
all the coding, it's time for the quiz. It's time for the Mentimeter.
All right, let's get started.
Ooh, how many degrees are in a circle? Oh, we have four options here. We have 365, 360, 270, or 15. And, well, it looks
360
like
is
most people
correct.
got it right. Yep.
All right, excellent job to these people that got it right. All right, when you want to add a function to your code, you blank it. You eat it, you read it, you call it, or you spin it.
Okay, let's give them a clue here. Tring, tring.
All right.
Ah,
Yes, you call it. Thank you, Vagish, for that totally great hint. All right. Let's see.
the next question we have. Calling a function is most similar to a calculator solving a math sum, the fan turning on when you press a button, someone making food using a recipe, or the sun rising and setting every day.
This
Give them
one's
a second.
tricky. Let's see.
Well, it looks like most of them got it right. It is like the fan turning on when you press a button, and the button calls the function to turn the fan on.
Excellent job. All right. Which two ways can you use to hide a sprite? There's only one way, hide and show block, looks and wait block, hide and show button, B and D, or none of the above.
Lots of options. Let's see if that trips them up. Oh,
Oh no, it must have, but there were still a lot of people that said B and D, so excellent job. All right.
now you can call a function many times in one piece of code. True or false?
Hmm.
This is an interesting question. I think they'll get it right though, because that's what we used in our example. Let's open it up and
Let's
see.
see.
Oh, yep, they got it right, most of them.
Excellent job.
53 saying true.
All right. A function in Scratch is created by A. Copy and pasting blocks of code, B. Using the backpack, C. Changing a sprite's costume, or D. Making your own block.
Hmm, give them a second. Oh,
Excellent job. It is making your own block. Excellent job.
and
All
the
right.
blocks come in the coolest color, pink. Right. So how does a computer keep track of the location of items on a screen? Does it use an input-output system? Does it use an XY coordinate grid, using storage departments, or making copies of the item? Hmm.
Let's see.
Yep, it's an XY coordinate grid. Looks like most people got it right. That's how you keep track of where something is.
Question 8. So why do we section plots into three separate parts, beginning, middle, and end? A, because it looks cool. B, because we want to stay organized. C, because it makes the story more fun. Or D, there is no reason.
Hmm.
Hmm.
This is good even for other projects where we need to structure how we're going and make more complicated things. And yep,
It is because we want to stay organized. So excellent job.
ninth question. Which format is used to manage shapes? Bitmap or vector? Think back, we used it once in this lesson. And let's see if they remember. Have they been paying attention? Oh, it looks like the majority of people were falling asleep. But it is vector. It is the vector format that you use to add text or shapes to your code. Oh, not
That's
code, to
okay.
your
Sometimes
backdrop.
the names can get kind of tricky, but excellent job. All right. Last one. Now, this is what we just kind of did, so let's see if you were falling asleep this time. What is vector format? It's used to change pixels for the backdrops. It's used to change the color of shapes in the backdrop. It is used to remove shapes from the backdrop. It is used to select and change shapes in the backdrop.
I might have given this one away, but let's see.
It is
Yep.
used to change the color of shapes in the backdrops. Excellent job, everyone. Majority of you all got it right. All right.
And the 11th question. Where do you go under the code tab to make a new block? Operations, variables, my blocks, or control? If they have Scratch open, they can quickly take a peek, but let's move on to the
We won't
answer.
give them the time.
There we go.
Answer is
Looks
my
like
blocks.
most of them got it right. Smarty pants.
All right, the 12th question. Which of the following are true for the coolest project competition? A. Projects have to be completed to be submitted. B. Celebration party is June 8th. C. The competition is global. D. It happens every year. E is B and C. Or F. All of the above except A.
Hmm.
It's kind of specific. Let's see. Excellent job.
Yep,
Yes, it is all of the above except A. Excellent. All
it
right.
does happen every year. So, let's go more into detail about the coolest products competition. Registrations are open, everyone, and that's very exciting. So, you can scan the QR code or follow the link down in the description to register. With that being said, don't forget to check your class resources in the description of this video.
And if you haven't done so already, click the subscribe button down below to be notified of all of our new shows. We had a fun class for next week, so join us for Here's the Scoop.
I know I'll definitely be watching, so everyone at home better be watching too. You don't want to miss it.
We're so glad that you all joined us today.
Thank you so much for coming. We loved having you. Bye.